Hello friends, welcome to a new episode of Drishti IAS editorial analysis. In this editorial analysis, we do three things. First of all, we link the editorial to the UPSC syllabus. Secondly, we try to understand the key points of the editorial. And thirdly, if any key concepts have come in the editorial and are important from exam point of view, we also discuss that. So let us begin today's editorial analysis. We have taken today's editorial from the Hindu and it has appeared on 4th of June. The title of the editorial is 7 to 11 and it says that India deserves its place on the global stage, but on G11 it must be clear about the aims of G11. So recently President Trump has said that G7 needs to be expanded because it is not reflecting the post-COVID-19 realities of the world. So now let us look at its linkage with the UPSC syllabus. So it links directly with GS paper 2 where we have international relations. And under this we have bilateral, regional and global groupings. So here we will be discussing G7 and the proposed G11, which comes under the global groupings topic. So after establishing this linkage with the syllabus, now let us look at the key points of the editorial. Before starting with the key points of the editorial, let us have a look at this G7 grouping. So this is the grouping of 7 countries as the name suggests. And these 7 countries are the world's wealthiest and most advanced countries of the world. And which are these 7 countries? So we have USA as the number 1 country in this grouping. Then we have countries like Canada. Then we have UK. Then we have Germany. We have France. And we have Italy. And the 7th country is Japan. Out of these countries, Canada was the last one to join in 1976. And in between, G7 was also known as G8, when in 1998 or 1997, Russia joined the grouping. But Russia was later on expelled in 2014 when it annexed Crimea, which was part of Ukraine. And this G7 grouping controls 58% of the global net wealth. And it also contributes 46% of the global GDP. So these stats are good to note. And it shows the importance of this grouping. To remember the countries in this grouping, you can use this simple acronym FUGIC-J, where F stands for France, U2 stands for UK and USA, G stands for Germany, and I stands for Italy, and C for Canada, and J for Japan. So FUGIC-J. And now President Trump, he has said that this G7 grouping is not reflecting the post-COVID-19 realities of the world. And he said that the grouping must include some other countries as well, which includes 4 countries: Russia, India, South Korea and Australia. These 4 countries can be remembered by this acronym IAS Rajasthan, which is India, Australia, South Korea and Rajasthan. And why President Trump is proposing this expansion in G7? So the notable absentee in this list is China. And we have seen that US and China have been in some kind of confrontation for a long time now, which involves trade, which involves territories like Taiwan, Hong Kong, and also China's assertion in the South China Sea. And now this COVID-19 pandemic and its mishandling by China, as the US is saying. So all this is making US-China enter into some kind of tussle for supremacy. And this proposal of G11 is being seen by some experts as part of that strategy only. But all the invited countries, including India, have welcomed this expansion proposal. And Russia has said that if it is treated as an equal partner, then it will consider joining it. But there is a lot of difference within the grouping as to the joining of Russia. As other than US, the other countries are not in favor of Russia joining the grouping again. And Russia was expelled in 2014 for annexing Crimea from Ukraine. Now Crimea has a very interesting history. Earlier Crimea was part of the Ottoman Empire. And it came under the Russian influence and Russian occupation during the reign of Catherine the Great. who took it from the Crimean rulers, and it became part of the Russian Empire for a long period until 1954, when the then Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev, he decided to give Crimea to Ukraine. And this did not matter then, because Ukraine, Russia, Crimea all were part of the Soviet Union, or USSR as it was known then. But things changed in 1991 when the USSR collapsed and Ukraine and Russia became two separate nations. And since then the tussle began between the two countries. And in 2014, finally Russia annexed Crimea despite lot of international opposition, and it was expelled from G8 as a result of that, and G8 became G7. So after understanding all this, let us move on to the key points of the editorial. So the editorial begins by saying that India deserves its place on the global stage because of its size, population, economy, and its advancement in the field of space and technology as well. So all of these areas India has been doing well, and now it has arrived on the global stage. But at the same time, the editorial sounds a note of caution that on G11, India must be clear about the aims of G11. And also India should be clear about what it expects out of joining such a grouping. Because right now, this G11 grouping by its design seems to be aimed at countering or containing China. And India being China's neighbor, it further compounds the issue for India. And also because India and China share a very long disputed border. So India has to be cautious in its approach towards such a proposal. And the proposal has come from President Trump, who is known for such ideas. And he has been dismissive of the current configuration of G7. And he says that the configuration of G7 and its membership is at present outdated, and it needs to bring in fresh members to maintain its relevance. And that is why he has suggested that G7 should be converted into a G11 by bringing in India, Russia, South Korea and Australia. And here we should know that G7 summits are held annually, though the finance ministers of G7 keep on meeting at various times during the year depending on the situation. But the leadership summit happens annually, and last year it happened in 2019 in France, where again India was a special invitee, and it happened at a place called Biarritz. And it was for the first time that in the 45-year history of G7, the countries of G7 could not agree to issue a joint statement or communique as it is called. So there are a lot of differences within the G7 grouping as well. And out of these countries, India has welcomed the move. South Korea and Australia have also welcomed the initiative of President Trump. And Russia has also stated that if it is treated equally, then it will think about joining the grouping. But this is what the US is saying. The other members of the grouping are not in favor of bringing in Russia again, because they are not okay with the annexation of Crimea that Russia did and for which it was expelled. So it might so happen that G11 may not fructify and the countries may go for some kind of compromise of a G10 or that kind of grouping. Now in all this development, China is the notable absentee, and China has always been invited regularly to G8 summits along with the other emerging economies of Brazil, South Africa, India and Mexico as part of the outreach of the developed world to the 5 emerging economies. And this grouping has been known as G8 plus 5. So China has been a regular invitee, but now due to the tensions between US and China, and also US being the host of this year's G7 summit, China is not invited. And these US-China tensions are focused on trade, coronavirus pandemic. They are also not on the same page with the WHO's handling of this COVID-19 pandemic. And obviously Taiwan is a sore point between the two countries. And now also with the new security law being passed by China, which has been opposed by US. So the US wants to bring together its traditional allies and new friends to discuss the rise of China and maybe plan a strategy to contain its rise. because US sees China as its rival on the world stage, and vice versa. China also considers US to be its only equal in the world. And China has also lashed out, saying that G11 experiment is doomed to failure from the very start, and it will not fructify into anything fruitful. Now here let us try to understand what is this US-China-India triangle and what should be India's policy options at this stage. So President Trump has repeatedly offered to mediate between India and China on the border issue. But India, as its policy, does not encourage mediation in the bilateral issues. But at the same time, India must also realize that statecraft is also about increasing options and not about reducing them. And while dealing with China, India has to employ all possible means, which includes diplomatic, economic and military means. Because obviously there is a mismatch between India and China's relative strengths. So India has to play its cards very well, and having a friend in the form of United States doesn't hurt India's case at all. But India has to retain its strategic autonomy. And here we also need to realize that one measure of a nation's strength is how many friends it has. And being able to say one of them is United States still counts for a lot in international relations, because US still remains the sole superpower in the world. But at the same time, India must keep away from the superpower rivalry between US and China, because getting involved in that will not help in the resolution of bilateral issues with China. And because India has a large boundary settlement issue with China, so India has to keep good bilateral relations with China. But at the same time, India cannot allow China to browbeat into accepting whatever China wants. So there having US as a friend helps India's case. And India will also need to realize that as part of its diplomatic skill set, it has to be prudent to judge when to use a scalpel and when to use a broadsword to get its motives accomplished. And India should also be clear and recognize which external crisis can be handled at what level. And India has done well in this regard, even while the Doklam crisis was going on. India held firm to its position, and finally the crisis was resolved through diplomatic channels. And after that, India and China had two successful informal summits at Wuhan and Chennai. And now with this tension on the border, again between India and China, India has followed the same policy of being firm but not engaging in verbal duel with the Chinese Foreign Office. So by being part of this G11 kind of grouping, India will have to pick and choose its battles. Which issues can be dealt at that forum and which issues need to be dealt at a bilateral level. So issues such as the technology standards, the 5G, maritime security in South China Sea, etc. These are the kind of issues that can be dealt at a broader summit level meet of some grouping like G7 or G11. But for discussing its border issues and other bilateral matters, India and China will need to sit together and sort it out. The editorial also talks about the perspective that India should have on a grouping like G11. So India must also weigh its pros and cons about joining this G11, because the objectives of G11 are still unclear, and as host of G7 summit, US can invite any country. But for changing the composition of G7, the acceptance of all the other members will also be needed, and many of these countries are not okay with the re-entry of Russia. And also there is no clarity on when the summit will be held, because the US presidential elections are supposed to be held in November and the United Nations General Assembly session is scheduled for September. It is being expected that President Trump may have this G7 summit around September only to coincide with the UNGA session. Finally, the editorial makes this point that evaluation of G7's effectiveness as a multilateral forum is also needed, as there have been deep differences among the members on various issues such as climate change. Now, on climate change, the views of countries like France, Germany are diametrically different from what is the view of US, which is not accepting climate change as a real problem. And it has also walked out of certain international deals like the Paris Pact. and also about the Iran nuclear deal, where the European nations and the European Union were in favor of continuation of the deal, but US unilaterally withdrew from the deal and imposed sanctions on Iran, which has made the situation volatile. And the differences were to that extent that in 2019 summit, which was held in France, a joint statement or communique, which is normal, was not issued. And this happened for the first time in the 45 years history of G7. So all this points to a lot of differences within G7. And at such a time, expansion of G7 might not be realistic. So it remains to be seen, and India must play its cards well and make sure that it does not get involved in any power play between US and China. But it must also be wise enough to the option of using US as a leverage against China wherever required. So this was all in the key points of the editorial. Now let us move on to the key concepts. So in key concepts, let us look at G7. So G7 or Group of Seven is an intergovernmental organization that was formed in 1975 by the top economies of the time as an informal forum to discuss pressing world issues. And the original members were France, West Germany, US, Great Britain and Japan, the Group of Five. And it was formed in the wake of 1973 oil crisis. And this 1973 oil crisis culminated as a result of the oil embargo, which was imposed by the OPEC countries against some other Western countries which were thought to help Israel in the war against the Arab countries. So this embargo was imposed, and when the embargo was released sometimes around March 1974, the oil price had jumped 400 times. So from $3 it went to $12 per barrel, and this was the first oil shock. So in the backdrop of this G7 was formed, and Canada joined the grouping in 1976, and European Union began attending the meeting of G7 from 1977 onwards. Now presently the Group of Seven includes FUGIC J. So we have France, UK, US, Germany, Italy, Canada and Japan. And G7 sees itself as a community of values that stands for peace, security and a self-determined life all around the world. And the key principles that it seeks to uphold are freedom and human rights, democracy and the rule of law, and prosperity and sustainable development. So this was all in today's editorial analysis. Now let us look at the kind of questions that can be asked. So in prelims, you can be asked direct question about G7. Where was the summit held? Who holds the G7 presidency this year? And so on. So last year it was France which was holding the presidency, and this year the presidency is with the US. And if there are any special invitees to G7 summit, the name of those countries, and if a joint statement was issued by the grouping and what it said. So things like that can be asked in prelims. And also now G11 is in news. So which 4 countries are proposed to be part of this G11? And in mains, the questions can be about the role of G7, the effectiveness of G7 as a multilateral forum over the years. Also, one should be knowing about the need for expansion of G7 in the post-COVID world, which President Trump has suggested. And you should also be prepared on a question like, is G11 meant only to counter the rise of China? And what should be India's perspective towards G11? Should India join such a grouping or should India keep away? So both sides you should be having points. So this was all in today's editorial analysis. We'll see you next time with another editorial. Thank you.